Antony Jay and I didn't agree on anything politically. And I didn't want people to think that Yes Minister was a Tory programme, which it wasn't, because we both implicitly had a right of veto. We never discussed it. But if I didn't like something that Tony wrote, I could change it. If Tony didn't like something I wrote, we'd change it. We'd find a way through. And in those days, unlike more recently, it was really possible for people with opposing political views to still be friends. That's less probable today.
Hello, I'm Laura Shavin, and this is The Offcut Straw, the show that looks inside a writer's bottom drawer to find the bits of work they never finished, had rejected, or couldn't quite find a home for. We bring them to life, hear the stories behind them, and learn how these random pieces of creativity paved the way to subsequent success. This episode, my guest is Jonathan Lynn, a writer, director and actor whose career spans television, film, stage and books. He first came to prominence in the Cambridge Footlights, performing alongside contemporaries that included John Cleese and Graham Chapmen, and on television he acted in series including Doctor in the House, The Liverbirds, The Good Life and the Jack Rosenthal plays Bar Mitzvah Boy and The Knowledge. As a writer, he penned episodes for the Doctor series, for sitcom On the Buses and for comedian Harry Worth, but he is best known for co-creating and co-writing the acclaimed political satires Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, awards for which are too numerous to list here. He later co-authored companion books The Complete Yes Minister and The Complete Yes Prime Minister, which spent 106 weeks in the Sunday Times best-selling top 10 list. His career in film includes writing the screenplays for the Internecine Project, Clue and Nuns on the Run, also directing the latter two, as well as directing other films that include My Cousin Vinny, The Distinguished Gentleman, Sergeant Bilko, The Whole Nine Yards and The Fighting Temptations. Other directing credits include award-winning stage productions for the National Theatre, the Royal Shakespeare Company and multiple West End shows. In fact, he has contributed to a wide range of film, stage and television projects over several decades, which we just don't have time to include here. And most recently, he has returned to the world of political satire with a new stage play, I'm Sorry, Prime Minister, which is set to premiere in London's West End in January 2026. Jonathan Lynn, welcome to The Offcut Straw.
Thank you.
The Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister project has seen various iterations. Firstly, you had two different levels of government, which turned into two very successful TV sitcoms. And then they became books, which were also hugely successful and bestsellers. And this time round, it's theatre. Why this genre?
Well, I've always worked in the theatre before I worked in television or film or anything. And I like the theatre. And about 12 years ago, I'm not sure actually, maybe a bit longer, we did a play called Yes Prime Minister, which was all original material. It wasn't from the series. And it opened at the Chichester Festival, and then it transferred to the Gielgud Theatre, London. And after that, it played at the Apollo Theatre, and then the Gielgud again, and then the Trafalgar. And it did two national tours. So it went on for 2 or 3 years and was immensely successful. So I thought, why not do one more about a final chapter for Humphrey and Jim?
All right, so you're keeping the same characters?
Oh, yes. It's about Humphrey and Jim, and they're both old men. They're in their 80s.
Right. Are they both still in government?
No, they've been retired for years. And they're bewildered by the world the way it is now, as most people are. And it's a sort of elegiac play about loss of friends, family, job. What do you do if you're forced to retire around about the age of 60? And that was your whole interest in life. What do you do for the next 20 years? What do you do, for the rest of your life? What do you do when you were used to everybody hanging on your every word, everything you said mattered? And now nobody really cares what you think or say about anything. So it's about the loss of power, loss of everything. It's sort of the only play I've seen that's on this subject really is King Lear. But my play is funnier.
So it's not so much a satire on British government anymore then?
Well, it is in a way, because it's about, Jim. What it's about is Jim is now master at Oxford College, and the student body and the fellows want to get rid of him because he's been politically incorrect in a variety of ways. And he gets Humphrey to come and help him, or he hopes he can get Humphrey to come and help him. They haven't spoken for years, and so it's a reunion. But I think of it as the final chapter in the story of Jim and Humphrey.
And who have you cast for Humphrey and Jim?
Jim is being played by Griff Rhys-Jones and Humphrey by Clive Francis. And we tried out the play about a year and a half ago in Cirencester at the Barn Theatre, and then Theatre Royal Bath, and now Theatre Cambridge. And I played Jim at that point.
Did you?
And Clive played Sir Hartford, yes, which was a bit nerve-wracking. I hadn't been on stage for 41 years.
How'd it go?
It went incredibly well, as you can tell, because we're opening in the West End now.
And you're not tempted to go back into the play yourself?
I'm not, no, because I have Parkinson's disease and my movement is now pretty strange. And also, I'm not a famous actor, and Griff Rhys-Jones is. And he's wonderfully funny.
Excellent. Successful sitcoms, especially British successful sitcoms, they're often sold abroad to be turned into the American equivalent or the Israeli equivalent or the German equivalent. Did you ever have any country try and do their own version of Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister?
Not as far as we know. I think there was one tried in Sweden that was so clearly based on our show, but they hadn't bought the rights, so we stopped that. But I'm not sure about that. This is the distant past. And we had a lot of inquiries at the time, a lot of people wanting to make an American series based on our series, which has happened, as you know, with so many others. But it didn't translate. The separation of powers, the presidency, Congress, all the power structure is different in America, or was at that time. Now it's just sort of dictatorship. But it just didn't translate. And we didn't mind that. And it had been shown in dozens of countries. And the books had been published in lots of countries. And then it was shown here, not on a big network, but on PBS and public television, and it was very well received. So we're pretty happy with all of that.
Well, let's kick off with your first offcut. Can you tell us, please, what it's called, what genre it was written for, and when it was written?
Yes, this one's called The Bottom Line, and it's a screenplay I wrote in 2008.
Fade in. Interior, a shabby lecture room. Day. Samaritan's Hospital, Philadelphia. Dr. Milton Viner, in his late 50s, conscientious and tired, is introducing a meeting. Around the table are Dr. Laurie Tarnish, an anesthesiologist, Dr. Julia Craven, a kiss-ass resident, and assorted other surgical staff, including Dr. Duff, Dr. Plummer, and Dr. Singh.
Good morning. As the Chief of Surgery, it's my doubtful pleasure to welcome you to the Morbidity and Mortality meeting to discuss the week's surgical complications in the hope that we can prevent similar screw-ups in future. You all know the drill. This is a closed meeting. Are we all clear what that means?
It means that by tomorrow, half the hospital will know everything we said.
Maybe. So let's really try to keep it confidential today. Lawsuits at this place have been increasing exponentially, and some of the surgical mistakes on the agenda are even more embarrassing than usual.
Tell me about it. I'm being sued again. I'm wondering if there have been leaks from these meetings.
Oh dear. This must stop.
Who's suing you?
Victor Rich.
He's suing me too.
Yeah?
I've never been sued before.
I'll get used to it.
Yeah. All right. First, Dr. Duff, your hip replacement. Let's see the x-ray. Lights?
Lights go out. Duff, an orthopedic surgeon, speaks as a hip x-ray is shown on a screen.
This is prior to surgery. The hip at the point of disarticulation.
Everyone stares at the x-ray, slightly puzzled.
Looks perfectly normal to me.
Well, yes. In point of fact, it is perfectly normal.
Now everyone stares at Duff.
You removed a perfectly normal hip?
Yes. However, we choose to regard this as a positive measure. There is very severe osteoarthritis degeneration, admittedly of the other hip, but when the other hip needs replacement, next Thursday, actually, since we didn't do it this week, electively, of course, his new hip will certainly help speed up his convalescence.
They are all still staring at him.
You are pretending you replaced the wrong hip on purpose.
That's almost worse than doing it by accident.
Dr. Duff, may I remind you that the purpose of this meeting is not damage control, it's to learn from our mistakes.
There were no mistakes in the surgery itself. I did it perfectly.
I don't know how to reply to that.
Everyone shifts uncomfortably in their seats.
The question is, why did it happen?
Excellent question, sir, if I may say so.
Thank you, Julia.
The X-ray wasn't labeled. There were no left and right markers.
Why not?
Someone else was using them.
There aren't any others.
It's the cutbacks.
I see.
Yeah, sure it is.
I might have known.
Cut to interior, a panelled boardroom, day.
And now what we've just heard is from a film script called The Bottom Line, which you mentioned when you sent it to me had subsequently changed its name to Samaritans, and it's now a novel and has in fact been acquired by a UK production company to turn into a TV series. Have I got that right?
Yes, that was right at the time we spoke. The UK production company was not able to turn it into a TV series because at the time we made that deal, Netflix and other similar streaming companies were looking for material. By the time we got something to show them, they were not looking for any more material, which is the situation now.
Right.
But yes, it became a novel, and people could get it on Amazon, and I'm very pleased with it. It got a lovely response.
Yes, but excellent reviews from lots of famous people as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So are you still looking to turn it into a TV series or a film? Which would you prefer, actually?
I don't think I'm looking to do it anymore.
Oh.
I mean, you reach a point where either you get the show on or you move on. You can't keep batting away at something forever. If somebody else buys the rights, I mean, a couple of people have bought the rights to Samaritans already and not managed to get, I mean, somebody else, Linda Obst, bought the rights for Sony Pictures Television, but she came up with a pitch for the series which I didn't like, so I vetoed it. And, I'd rather it's not done unless it's done properly.
Right.
So what I had to say, which was about the American healthcare system and how catastrophic it is all in the book. And sooner or later, somebody will probably think, oh, I could make a film or a TV series of that. But obviously the novel is much fuller. I mean, I added a huge amount of material because the screenplay is very short. A screenplay is about 120 pages and a lot of white space on each page. And so you have to be very, very economical in what you say. In the novel, I was able to add characters, background, more funny scenes.
And on the subject of medicine and doctors, where I first remember you was as an actor in the Doctor in the House series, which you also went on to write on and on the related series Doctor at Large, Doctor in Charge, Doctor at Sea and Doctor on the Go, I think.
I think so.
But you were an actor first. So what prompted you to write the series? Were you part of the original writing team?
No, I was engaged as an actor, but I've been trying to write for years. Because I was in my 20s and I discovered that being an actor meant being out of work a lot of the time.
So true.
So I wanted to write because when I wasn't acting, I was doing things like selling records at Selfridges and I felt that wasn't very creative. So I was acting in the series and then I left it. And one day I got a phone call from another actor in the series, George Layton, with whom I got along really well. And he said, the writers haven't delivered a script for about 3 weeks ahead. Shall we try and do one? And I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity. I'd been writing for 5 years without any success. So George and I got together and we wrote an episode.
Was he still an actor on it at the time?
Yes. And it was easy for us in a way because we all knew all the characters. And we wrote what turned out to be a very funny script. And the producer, Humphrey Barclay, bought it and put it straight into production. And 3 weeks later, it went on the air. And people absolutely loved it. And suddenly, we were deluged with offers. We suddenly became hot writers. And I'd been trying to get anything done for the last 5 or 6 years. And then suddenly, I was an overnight success.
So this was for other series, not?
Well, Humphrey asked us to write on some other Doctor episodes. And then we were asked to write for a series of omnibuses, which I found terribly hard.
Oh. Why did you find it hard?
Well, I was familiar with it, but it just wasn't really my sense of humour. And our job was to make it seamless so that when Ronnie Wolfe and Ronnie Chesney, who had created the series, they were off making a film of On the Buses, and it was our job to continue, as it were, seamlessly. And it worked very well, but I found it hard. Jokes about the price of fish. And I hadn't really learned about research yet. So I suppose I could have made it easier for myself if I'd gone to a bus depot and talked to some bus drivers and bus conductors and inspectors, although it might not have made any difference at all. But George found it easier than I did, and we wrote a series that people really liked.
As an actor, were you ever tempted to write yourself into the shows, into the scripts, on any of the projects you've written on?
Yes, I was. I was tempted. We did a series, George and I went on, to do a series called My Brother's Keeper at Granada Television, and we wrote it for ourselves. It was an idea of mine about, when I was at Cambridge, sometime in the dark ages, criminology was one of the subjects I was doing as part of a law degree. And there was a twin study. Twin studies are used to determine whether or not characteristics of people are caused by what they used to call nature or nurture. In other words, were they genetic? And there was an experiment with 9 identical twins whose twin brothers were missing, and they were all policemen. And they managed to find 13 of these missing identical twins. And interestingly, 9 of them were convicts, and the other 4 were policemen.
Wow.
So I don't know what he really suggested. I think it suggested that people genetically were either very law-abiding or very anti-law-abiding.
Right.
So we wrote these parts, and we played the twins. And it was well received, and we did 2 series of Granada. But then Granada didn't continue it. So at that point, George and I stopped writing together. And then I didn't write anything for myself until we did the pilot of Yes Minister.
Oh, who were you in Yes Minister?
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
But I thought I might be.
When
we were writing it. There was Jim and Humphrey, and the part of Bernard Woolley I thought I could play. And then I decided that it just wasn't a good idea. It would be much better to find somebody else than for me to be able to look at rehearsals objectively. And it's hard to be objective about something if you've written it and you're in it.
That's true, yes.
And we were very lucky we found Derek Folds. And in the end, I was very glad I had not suggested myself for the part. I never suggested myself. It was all in my head.
So did you ever get to the point, because you're writing, you're acting, directing, did you ever get to the point where you thought, I'm not an actor anymore, I'm a writer and director? Or has acting never really been off the table if the right part came along?
Acting was off the table for years. After My Brother's Keeper and before Yes Minister, I was director of the Cambridge Theatre Company. That was a touring company, Arts Council subsidised, based on the Arts Theatre, Cambridge, and it toured all over the country. And I was director of that for nearly 5 years. And we did about 40 productions in that time. And I never cast myself at all. I think that's very unusual for actors who are directors. So it was clear to me I could always find someone who I would rather see play the part. So at that point, it was clear to me that I wasn't really interested in acting anymore, except occasionally with people who I really liked.
Right. OK, then, let's move on. Time for another off-cut now. Can you tell us about this one?
Well, this is a one-act play that I wrote only a few years ago. I think it was 2018. It's called Primitive Murderous Rage.
Lights snap on. A comfortable office. Day. Bookshelves with books but not filled up. 2 chairs a moderate distance from each other. Bill is sitting opposite Acacia. After the lights come up, there is the longest pause in theatrical history. The audience should become convinced that something has gone wrong. Forgotten lines, somebody missing, who knows what. Eventually...
Is something supposed to happen?
You're supposed to say something.
I am?
He nods.
Like what?
That's up to you. How about why you're here?
You know why I'm here.
Not really.
I need help.
He nods.
That's what you do? Nod.
Bill nods again.
Look, I didn't come here to be bored. I can be bored at home.
Are you bored at home?
Yes.
Why are you bored?
I don't know.
So, in the absence of anything better to do, you decided to bore me too.
No, that's not fair.
Are you chronically bored?
I think so.
You're not saying I'm boring you.
You are boring me, actually.
But I'm not the cause of your boredom.
No. So, what now?
Ball's in your court.
Why?
You're the one who's bored. Can you tell me why you're bored?
No. I just am. Why don't you tell me? That's why I'm here.
I can't tell you anything until you tell me something.
There's nothing to tell.
There must be something. Something about your life.
My life's boring.
Is that why you're here? Because you're bored?
Yes.
He nods.
Now you're bored too.
No, not now that I know that your boredom is in fact the presenting problem.
He waits, nodding occasionally. Eventually,
Is there anything else you want to mention before you go?
You want me to go?
Do you want to go?
Why do you always answer a question with a question?
Why do you think?
You mentioned when you sent this that this was in fact written as part of a double bill. So what happened to the other play?
The other play was called Oedipus Gate, and it was about Oedipus the king, Sophocles, in the form of Donald Trump.
Oh.
And that play is no longer relevant because it was written during the first Trump presidency, and now it's all quite different. So it was a topical political play. But I wanted to write a play about boredom because I thought that was a challenge.
Just the challenge of boredom that you were interested in. There was no point that you wanted to make or any kind of conclusion you wished to reach?
Oh, well, yes, there was. I mean, as the play goes along, it's clear that she suffers from a condition that the play calls primitive murderous rage.
Ah, hence the title.
And the psychiatrist is really inept and doesn't really know what to do about it. He thinks he's very scholarly and original, but in fact, he's very pedestrian, and he outlines his theories. Other than about boredom, it's a play about psychotherapy. And my wife is a psychotherapist. And so I've known dozens of psychotherapists and psychoanalysts during her career. And this play is a sort of satirical version of the worst of them.
Do you know lots of people with primitive murderous rage, or just those who treated them?
Yes, large numbers of people. I think most people have.
Have primitive murderous rage, which manifests itself as boredom?
No, it can manifest itself in all kinds of ways. But as you know, anger management is quite a big thing nowadays. I mean, a lot of people do things because they're angry or because they're very angry, which are not necessarily the right things to do. So I wanted to investigate all that. And in fact, this play is on my list of things to rewrite and expand into a full-length play.
Ah, so it doesn't have to be part of a double bill anymore.
That's right.
When you started your show business career, it was live performance in the theatre, you were in the Footlights, and the breakthrough show was Cambridge Circus, which went to Broadway and on television stuff. But you originally joined the cast as a musician, is that right?
Well, I didn't really join the cast. I mean, I joined the show. I was in the orchestra, in the orchestra pit. I played drums, percussion, which at that time I thought I was going to do professionally. I thought I was going to be a jazz drummer. And I spent a lot of my time at Cambridge playing in the jazz club with some wonderful musicians. But then I joined the Footlights Club with Eric Idle. We knew each other. We were in the same college. He wrote a sketch, which we both did. And the only way you could get into the Footlights in those days was to make the committee laugh. And we did. We got into it as members.
Was it a musical sketch? Because he's obviously very musical as well.
No, it wasn't musical, no. It wasn't a musical sketch. I can't remember what the subject was exactly. I think it was 2 centuries outside Buckingham Palace, but I can't remember more than that. I found the script, 30 years later, literally in a bottom drawer. And so I had it framed and sent it to Eric. I think it was the first sketch he ever wrote.
Oh, lovely.
So the show went to the West End. A producer called Michael White saw it at Cambridge. And it went to West End, where it did pretty well, actually. And John Cleese, Graham Chapmen, Bill Oddie, Tim Brooke-Taylor, Joe Kendall, and a couple of other people. And then I left it because I was just in the band, and I went on to work at the Edinburgh Festival.
Still as a musician, or were you acting then?
No, this was a production of Waiting for Godot, which Stephen Frears, another Cambridge friend, was directing. And then I went back to my third year. All the others were leaving Cambridge, and I was a year behind. And the year I graduated, the following year, I got a phone call from Bill Oddie right after my exams. And he said, Cambridge Circus is going to Broadway. Do you want to come? And I said, well, they have a musicians' union there. I wouldn't be allowed to. He said, no, in the cast. So I said, yes, of course. So my first acting job was actually on Broadway. And my first TV show was the Ed Sullivan Show with 70 million viewers live.
Spectacular.
And it's been sort of downhill ever since, really.
So you took over as an actor. Did you do any writing there too, or was the script already set in stone by then?
No, the script was already more or less set. And I wasn't a writer then. I mean, at Cambridge, I hadn't started writing. And I didn't know how it was done. I very much admired John Cleese and Bill Oddie, who wrote the majority of the show, because they could write funny scripts, and I thought it was sort of a magic gift.
So when did you find out that you could do it too?
Well, I told you about Doctor in the House.
Oh, that was literally the first time you'd done any writing. Because I thought if you'd have been involved with the Footlights, that you would be contributing to the shows a bit yourself, but not at all.
No, not at all. They were all writers and comedians, and I really wanted to be an actor at that point. And after we were on Broadway, they came back and started a radio show that was immensely popular called I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again. And I wasn't in that because I didn't write. And Graham Garden joined the cast of that because he could write. And I just acted in plays.
You mentioned the Ed Sullivan Show with the 70 million audience. Did that give you more confidence, do you think, and possibly even too much confidence? Because that's one hell of a gift for an actor.
It didn't give me any confidence at all. I mean, I was doing it with a group of people who we did a song, and I did a very short sketch, which people thought was funny. But no, it didn't really give me confidence. I mean, we were there on Broadway, which sounds very glamorous, but we were getting 30 quid a week.
No.
And I was staying in a really run-down hotel in Times Square, and it was distinctly unglamorous. But, you know, it was a terrific opportunity for someone aged 21 who had been a student 3 months earlier.
Of course, yeah. OK, moving on now. Let's have your next offcut, please. What's that?
This is a treatment for a screenplay called The Rocket's Red Glare, which was written in about 2006. And I wrote it with somebody called M.G. Lord, who's a writer in Los Angeles.
This is not based on a true story. This is a true story.
This is a tale of two scientists, perhaps the two most important rocket pioneers of the 20th century.
One was an idealist, an internationalist, and a humanitarian. He was an American. His name was Dr. Frank Molina. He is the protagonist of the film. He was interested in pure science, and he developed a rocket to study meteorology, our planet, and space. He was not interested in money.
The other was his nemesis, interested in fame, wealth, and power over his fellow human beings. He was German. He is the antagonist. His name was Dr. Werner von Braun. He developed his rockets with Hitler's personal approval as revenge and terror weapons against the British.
Molina, troubled by the poverty he saw during the Great Depression, flirted with communism very briefly in the 1930s, until Stalin signed a pact with Hitler and the scales fell from his eyes.
Von Braun was an active Nazi and a member of the SS until he surrendered to the Americans, who protected him because they wanted his knowledge, and they didn't want the Soviet Union to have access to his knowledge.
Molina was from a dirt-poor background. He was interested in social justice, and he was tolerant of all people, if not all points of view.
Von Braun was a baron and was not interested in social justice. He hand-picked Jewish scientists to work on the V1 and V2 at the Mittelbau-Dora concentration camps and allowed them to starve to death.
Molina had nothing to hide, didn't care about money, lived a good life and, by a quirk of fate, ultimately died both wealthy and fulfilled.
Von Braun died famous and powerful, but he lived the second half of his life in fear that his past would be revealed in spite of a massive and deceitful PR campaign.
Molina, who developed the rocket that first went into space, is almost completely forgotten.
Von Braun, the lesser of the two scientists, has been immortalized as the father of the American space program at NASA.
This is their story.
Now, this didn't make it because... What happened to it?
What happened to it was David Brown, who was a very important producer, produced the Sting and Jaws and Driving Miss Daisy and a number of very successful films, was extremely interested in it. And we were just about to start writing a screenplay when he died. And we, I don't know, for some reason, we didn't get anyone else interested. And it sort of fell away from our priorities. But I think it would be a wonderful film still. But there isn't a screenplay yet. It's just, there's a long treatment. I think it's about 20 pages telling the whole story.
So you could still be shopping it around then?
Well, I could be, but I'm not. M.G. Lord, who's a terrific writer, she teaches creative writing at USC, University of Southern California. And her father worked with Molina, and that's how she knew the story. So we worked on it together and enjoyed it very much. But I don't know, for one reason or another, my agents were unable to interest anybody else in this. And so it fell by the wayside. I think it's because it would have been a very expensive film.
It's, again, another project along political lines. Are you very politically active? You wrote Yes, Minister and Yes, Prime Minister with Antony Jay, who was very close with Margaret Thatcher's Tory government. Were the two of you politically aligned, or were you more neutral and just interested in the entertainment of it all?
I'm not politically active, really, although I take a great interest in it. I am very politically aware. Tony Jay and I didn't agree on anything politically. He was quite right-wing, and increasingly so as he got older. And he did a lot of work for speeches and things for Geoffrey Howe, Nigel Lawson, and Mrs. Thatcher, Norman Tebbit. And I had very little sympathy with all of that, mainly because, apart from the fact that I didn't agree with their political views mostly, I had very little sympathy with it because I didn't want people to think that Yes Minister was, as it were, a Tory programme, which it wasn't, because we both implicitly had a right of veto. We never discussed it. But if I didn't like something that Tony wrote, I could change it. If Tony didn't like something I wrote, we'd change it. We'd find a way through. And in those days, unlike more recently, it was really possible for people of opposing political views to still be friends. That's less probable today. And Tony and I were very good friends, and we tolerated each other's views amiably. And I just used to beg him, to make sure that his conservative connections weren't written about in the papers at the time. And on the whole, they weren't.
And your West End play coming up, the I'm Sorry, Prime Minister. Well, government behaviour has changed beyond recognition since the 1980s when you were writing Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. So do you have to incorporate those changes, or do you think that the politics is still at its heart kind of the same beast?
Politics is always the same beast. Politicians are always people who are interested in short-term changes in order to win the next election. The civil servants, people who were interested in something long-term that they felt was good for Britain, but of course they weren't elected, and it wasn't for them to say what was good for Britain. That was the essential conflict. But this play, which is now being called I'm Sorry, Prime Minister, but when I actually wrote it, the full title was I'm Sorry, Prime Minister, I Can't Quite Remember. And that's what I was going to say outside the theatre and in the programme. And, they both have memory problems. They're old. And it's about what it's like to be old and forgotten and ignored, and about all the mistakes they made in their political careers, on Humphrey and his civil service career. So it is about politics, but it's not about contemporary politics. The series was never about politics either. People always used to say it was a political series, but actually it wasn't. It was a series about government. Politics is quite separate from government. Politics is what goes on in the House of Commons, and people make big speeches, and, which is essentially theatre. Government happens in Whitehall, and nobody really knows how it's done.
Right. OK, time for another off-cut now. What have we got?
This is called Mayday, and it's a screenplay I wrote in the late 90s, based on a novel I've written of the same name that was published 2 or 3 years earlier.
Exterior TV studios, day. Mayday walks past a stage. An audience waits patiently in line. The marquee advertises Ask Your Father, America's favourite family show. He goes in. Interior writer's office, day. Scripts, sandwiches and half-eaten pizzas litter the room. 3 melancholy hard-bitten writer pals, Max Kirsch, Sidney Bite and Jerry Kelly. Jerry is reading aloud from the screen of his word processor.
How about she says, I'm trying to break it off, but I don't want to hurt him.
Then sex therapist says, then don't break it off. Wait till it goes soft.
That's funny? Maybe.
Jerry types. Mayday enters.
Hey, Ernest, come to help us punch up the show?
Jerry, I don't think I'd be much use.
Still blocked?
Yep, I finally told Fanny Rush.
What does she say?
Do you have to give back the money?
I can't. I spent it. She suggested I plagiarized one of my other books.
That's not plagiarism. It's plagiarism if you copy someone else's work.
That's right. If you copy your own, they call it your style.
What do you know? You're just a bunch of sitcom writers.
That's how we know. Plagiarism's what we do. Come on, fellas. We got 20 minutes left to write this scene. Somebody think of a gag we can borrow.
They all chime in with ideas.
I envied their facility.
Interior Mayday study, night. The cursor is blinking on the screen, which is still empty apart from Chapter 1. Mayday is unshaven, unwashed, apathetic. He stares hopelessly out of his magnificent picture window, then at the wall, then at an in-tray full of bills marked past due in red.
I had nothing to write, nothing to say. I was living on credit, literary, emotional and financial, and time was running out. The one bright spot was the masseuse I shared my life with.
We hear the front door open and shut. Randy Toner comes in. She's very attractive, in her 30s, carrying a folded massage table and big sports bag.
Hi, how's it going? Still blocked?
He nods. She sits on his knee and kisses him hungrily.
I can think of something that's much more fun than writing.
Her name was Randy Toner, and I was seeing her at the time. Seeing is an LA word for fucking. I'd been seeing her for a couple of years. She was great at it.
They tip slowly backwards out of his chair and out of view. Interior Mayday study, day. Mayday is sitting blankly at his desk again, still staring at his computer. The words Chapter 1 are still on the screen. Beside him is a glass of scotch and a nearly empty bottle. He stands and wanders into Interior Mayday's state-of-the-art kitchen, day. He pours himself a coffee. Consuela, his pudgy, smiling Mexican maid, is busily cleaning out the fridge. Dramatically, she picks up a milk carton and points to the sell-by date with a reproachful look.
Sell-by date!
And she makes a kill gesture, pretending to cut her throat, then hurls it into the garbage.
Consuela, my maid, spoke no other English words.
She finds some half-eaten cheese, holding it aloft in triumph.
Sell-by date!
And the offending cheese is cast into the outer darkness.
And as I spoke no Spanish, the relationship was simplified to a level at which I felt entirely comfortable.
He sips his coffee and idly opens the copy of LA Weekly, which is lying around on the kitchen counter. Suddenly he sees something interesting. Insert the personals. We pan down the column, stop, zoom in to read. Joanna is in desperate need of $10,000 now or soon. No holds barred.
It was then, in that copy of LA Weekly that I'd picked up by chance, that I saw the answer to my problem.
This was based on a novel that you wrote, which was successful and seems like a great story, perfect for film. So why didn't it get made?
I think they thought it was too clever. And being clever is a real problem in the world of Hollywood. But I don't know. It's about a man with writer's block, and he finds this ad by Joanna and gets the idea that if he will pay her whatever she asks, she will tell him how much money she earns from her ad and how she does it, and that will make a story. That's a very good idea, but it doesn't work out very well for him, because what it's really about is how writers manipulate people in their own lives in order to get stories that are interesting. It's about what is the writer's obligation to people that they write about, even if they fictionalize them. And so people really loved it, but, you never know why things don't get made. The truth is that I think every writer I know maybe has a ratio of about 1 project in 6 that gets made. That's par for the course. There's only a certain limited number of films that can be made. They don't get made without star names or a star director. And it's all finally decided by the marketing department.
You weren't tempted to maybe, try it in the UK?
Well, it's set in Los Angeles. I don't think it would be possible to make it in the UK. It might have been possible, but that would be very expensive because you have to be some shots in LA. It's an LA novel. It's not about Hollywood, although he's a writer. It's about Los Angeles in the 1980s, what it was really like.
He's a British expat living in LA then, and you were too? Were you in LA at that point, in the 80s?
I was, yes.
So how much of him is you?
Well, it's not really me. What I have in common with the character is that we're both writers.
There's no masseuse hanging around.
No, there's no masseuse. I have been married to the same woman who I loved for nearly 60 years.
Wow.
And there was no masseuse, no. No, it's about what I observed in Los Angeles.
Well, we did hear in that particular clip mention of the sitcom writer's room. Is that something that you're familiar with? Did you have much experience of that, working in a stereotypical American-style writer's room?
I did, actually. I was asked to join a show called Mr. President, and George C. Scott was to star in it. And I didn't want to do it because Ed Weinberger, who had created The Cosby Show, was the producer and head writer. And I'd read his pilot. And it was a very cozy show. It was like the Cosbys in the White House. And it lacked bite or any sort of real comment on Reagan, who was president at the time. So I said no. And then he kept asking me to do it. And finally, we made a deal whereby I would go in 1 day a week on Monday for what they called the punch-up. And the script would be, there'd be a read-through in the morning, and then everyone would give their notes. That is, everyone meaning all the executives. And then the script would come back to the writer's room, and we would have to fix it that day. And there were always lots of fixes necessary. And there were about 6 or 7 writers around the table, and we all worked all day, usually from about 11 a.m. to about 1 or 2 in the morning. And of course, this is pre-computers. So we had a chain of typists or secretaries making all the changes during the day. And I was paid extravagantly for this 1 day. And I used that to live on when I wrote the complete Yes, Prime Minister for the rest of the week.
But they never tempted you into a writer's room as being part of the core team?
That really was the core team. That was the week in which everything was punched up. The day in which everything was punched up.
I'm thinking more about developing the plot.
No, that was whoever was credited as the writer on screen. But I did do that one time. I got in one morning and Ed Weinberger said, I want you to read the script. And I said, when do you want me to read? He said, now, don't go into the writer's room. Go up to your office and read this and tell me what you think. So I read this really dreadful script. And I went back downstairs half an hour later, and I said to Ed, I think this is terrible. And he said, oh, I agree. I'd like you to rewrite it. And I said, when? He said, today. And I said, well, you want me to rewrite the script today? He said, yep, don't go back to the writer's room, rewrite the script. So I went upstairs, and I worked on it all day till 8 at night. And I got halfway through. So I took it down to Ed's office and said, this is as far as I've got. I'm halfway through. Sorry, I couldn't finish it. And so I went home and I expected to get a phone call saying that I was fired. And instead I got a phone call saying, it's great. Next week, do the second half. So it wasn't great. Great is the minimum. Great is the minimum adjective of praise in American show business. So I went in the following week. I wrote the second half, and incredibly, 2 weeks later, it went into rehearsal and on the air, and I never saw it.
Oh.
Well, I didn't want to. I thought it was terrible.
Oh, no.
I thought it was just better than what I'd been given to start with. And the series didn't really work. And at the end of the first series, George C. Scott left it and the series finished because he'd also thought it would be something much more acerbic and politically interesting. And he was really upset by the way the scripts were being done. So he left. And that was the end of that series. But it was a very nice 2 or 3 months when I got extremely well paid for one day's work a week.
OK, well, we've come to your final offcut. Can you tell us about this one, please?
This is a screenplay I wrote a long time ago. I'm guessing about 1997. And it's called The Prenup.
Interior, the dining room, night. The table is piled high with wedding gifts. Alice enters, followed by Zach. She turns to him.
Okay, what is it?
Well,
Babe, what is it?
my dad wants us to have a prenup. So I didn't want to mention it before because I knew you'd take it the wrong way, but...
The wrong way? What's the right way?
It's just that my dad says it's just sensible. It's sensible...
Go on.
No, that's it.
A sensible what?
Precaution.
Precaution? Against what? You think you need to protect yourself from me?
Well,
You don't know me.
No, I knew you'd react like this. Look, if you feel so strongly, let's forget it.
Forget it? How can I ever forget this?
It's my dad.
What has this got to do with your dad?
If we don't do this, he'll stop me getting the trust fund.
So what?
It's $40 million.
We don't need his money. Tell him to shove it.
Of course we need the money. $40 million? Are you crazy?
Am I crazy? You spring a prenup on me the night before our wedding, and you ask me if I'm crazy.
He only just sprang it on me. Why is a prenup such a problem? You always said you don't care about money.
I don't care about money. I'm not marrying you for your money, you doofus.
So what's the...
I thought our marriage was going to be a partnership, sharing everything, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse.
You just have to trust me.
I have to trust you, but you don't trust me.
I do trust you. It's just my dad. Please sign it.
You've got it with you. You have, haven't you?
Shamefaced, he pulls out a contract from his inside pocket. Without a word, she holds out her hand for it. He gives it to her. She barely glances at it.
You said he just sprang it on you.
A few days ago.
You were lying.
I was not lying, just not telling.
You said it was hypothetical. You said you were just talking about your father, but now you're saying you do want me to sign this.
Yes, I do, but only because...
Why did you say you didn't?
I just couldn't see a way to mention it without upsetting you.
I'm not upset. I just hadn't realised I was dispensable, that's all. But money's important. We must be sensible. I understand that.
Alice, darling, I love you.
I'll just take this away to read it. I must read it carefully. Of course, you understand that.
She crosses past him towards the door. He tries to take her in his arms. Carefully, she disentangles herself.
Excuse me?
She leaves the room.
The accompanying note with this was you couldn't find a name to play Alice. Was there anyone in particular you'd approached and they just turned you down, or you just had no particular inspiration for it?
I really can't remember. But the film is about the culture clash between America and England. She's the daughter of an English judge, and she's been to a fancy school. She's quiet and thoughtful, and she's a writer. And he's a banker and doing rather well. And so it's about marriage, and it's about the difference between English and American attitudes to marriage at that time.
So the premise of the film was the difference between the cultures of American and English.
Well, that was one of the things it was about. There was a spate of romantic comedies in recent years, which weren't about anything. They were about just silly setups. This is about a serious dispute. It's about money, and it's about, whether or not Zach is prepared to marry her and risk losing the fortune that his father was going to give him. So it's not it's not an artificial setup. It's a very real problem that exists in many marriages in those days in America, and now I think in Britain as well. I think the High Court in Britain recognized prenups a few years ago as things that should be taken into account in divorce settlements. And so it's not quite about a culture clash anymore. But also, the script is about romance, in that it's an anti-romantic comedy. It's not a romantic comedy, it's an anti-romantic comedy. Because finally, it's about what's important in a relationship. And it goes into other generations. It goes to Alice's parents, who have lived together not entirely successfully for 40 or 50 years. And to Zach's father, who's been married lots of times. He's a rock star. And so, it really sort of addresses a lot of questions about what's the basis of marriage and how much money or financial interests or vested interests intrude upon the relationship.
And would you have directed this film?
I would have, yes.
Because you've obviously directed a lot of films, many of the scripts that you didn't write.
Yes.
For example, My Cousin Vinny, which is a great film. As a director who's also a writer, do you find yourself making changes to someone else's script? Are you allowed to do that?
Oh, yes.
Do you need permission?
I was hired by 20th Century Fox to actually do the production rewrite of My Cousin Vinny.
Is that before you became director?
No, when I was director, it was part of the deal.
Ah, I see.
But they weren't happy with the script. They thought it was potentially successful, but they weren't happy with a number of things about it. So I did do a production rewrite. I made a number of changes, and I'm not credited, which I think is appropriate because, a director has to write at least 50% of a script in order to deserve a credit, because otherwise it's too easy for a director who's quite powerful just to rewrite bits here and there and then claim a credit. That used to happen, but the Writers Guild doesn't allow it anymore, and I think they're right. So I did write some of My Cousin Vinny, but most of it, of course, was written by the original writer, Dale Lorna.
Did you have to consult him when you were rewriting it at all?
I chose to. I chose to, and he didn't like anything I suggested. So I did it anyway. I mean, there's bits of dialogue that people still quote, when Vinny says there's these two youths to the judge, and the judge says, "What?" And Vinny says, "Two youths." And the judge says, "What's a youth?" And that was just a conversation that Joe Pesci and I actually had at the Mayflower Hotel in New York when we met to discuss the script. And he said to me, "Well, there's these two youths." And I said, "What's a youth?" So I realized that had to go into the script. And, so I added stuff here and there. I changed the ending. I got Dale to rewrite the very last scene, which wasn't working. And, he wasn't very pleased with what I did, and he should have been, because the film was an enormous success.
Okay, well, we have come to the end of the show. How was it for you?
Well, fine. Thank you very much. It's nice not to have to feel guilty about talking about myself for an hour.
Okay, well, let me ask you one final question.
Yes.
Is there any advice that you would give a younger you, knowing now what you know about life, the business?
Oh, so much advice. I wouldn't know. I hardly know where to begin.
Is there one snappy little phrase that you could use for the sake of the podcast?
Let me think. Advice that I needed or that I could give as a result of my experience.
Is there anything, thinking of yourself 50, 60 years ago, is there anything you think, you just need to, don't worry about that, or slow down with this, or this is more important than you think it is, that sort of thing?
I think I would say, that's a really tricky question. I'm having to think about that.
I mean, maybe the answer is no. I think I did everything pretty much the way it should have been done.
Oh, no, I think I did nearly everything wrong. So the question is, what did I do? Which of the many things I did wrong? I think I wasn't always sufficiently open to other people's ideas. And I would say, although in the end, you have to be true to yourself, you have to be open to other people's suggestions and comments. And it took me a long time to learn that. And I think I would also say, when you're starting out in this business, take any job that's offered. You can learn from anything. And the main thing is to keep working and get to know people and gradually you'll find bigger and better opportunities. And I think that applies to everything. It applies to acting, writing, directing, anything in our business.
Now that is excellent advice. Very useful indeed. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today, Jonathan Lynn. Thank you for sharing the contents of your Offcut Straw with us.
Oh, well, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
The Offcut Straw was devised and presented by me, Laura Shavin, with special thanks to this week's guest, Jonathan Lynn. The offcuts were performed by Keith Wickham, Shash Hira, Emma Clarke, Kenny Blyth, Christopher Kent and Beth Chalmers, and the music was by me. For more details about this episode, visit offcutstraw.com, and please do subscribe, rate and review us. Thanks for listening.